This is Coffee with Humans with my new friend, Kyle. Welcome to Coffee with Humans.
Hey, Jason. Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Good morning. So, earlier this week, I have a confession to make, something new that I found out. That intro where it says, I thought we could be having a coffee in a hot spring in Iceland. Boop. And it
Yeah.
showed up. I Googled that because I was like, a hot spring, and I needed a picture. And so I found that picture. Well, I was talking to a guy actually from Iceland the other day, and he laughed at me and said, "That's not a hot spring." And I was like, "Of course it is. What are you talking about?" He says, "Actually, that's runoff from a manufacturing plant that is apparently very safe, also warm. So it's hot water runoff from a manufacturing plant in Iceland that has a high degree of silicon in the water. So it's apparently very good for you, but it is not a natural hot spring in Iceland."
It's all about the marketing game. You can make anything look good.
It looked great. He also
It
said it's
did.
like super expensive to be there. It's like $100 or something like that to go to this
They
fake hot
charge
spring.
you for that runoff.
They do. It's like the little pretzel. I don't know if you eat pretzels. Like the big Snyder. I think Snyder's has these big pretzels.
Uh,
Um, and then I can only imagine that what happened is eventually, pretzels get all beat up and they become these little pretzel pieces, pretzel bites. Now they call them, and they sprinkle all sorts of stuff on them. But it's just pretzels that got completely destroyed in the manufacturing process, and now, and now it's marketed to you, as you needed a pretzel bite. You needed a tiny broken piece of pretzel that was you. Usually you'd be upset about it, but when you call it pretzel bite, you're like, great, I'll take it back.
yeah, perfect. I do love those too.
Well, welcome to Coffee with Humans. I'm curious, what inspired you to have coffee with me?
Yeah, I've been searching for ways to get uncomfortable. I've been on this personal development journey, and I'm learning that being uncomfortable is, that's the way to grow. There's a lot of good things that happen on the other side of getting outside of that comfort zone. And I also had a conversation on a couple other podcasts before, and I really enjoyed the process, and getting to meet a new person, and just just create a new relationship. And what better way than doing it live to, what did you say, live to the entire, the entire web, right?
Well,
World.
this is live to Twitch, Facebook, Periscope, which is Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Daily Motion, which I think is popular in Europe.
Okay, yeah, I haven't even heard of some of those platforms. But yeah,
Yes. So
that's
that you're here because you've been trying to get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
yeah, it's a process, and it's something that you have to be intentional about, because we default to relaxing and staying within that comfort zone. So definitely have to seek it out a little bit.
Have you, in this journey to be uncomfortable, what kinds of things have you explored? It sounds like you explored a couple podcasts, which I'm curious what makes you uncomfortable about that.
Well, and it's the speaking really that got me. So it all kind of started with Toastmasters. I got
Okay.
involved with that a couple of years ago now. But I had this, of course, I think tons. It's one of the most common fears, right, that people have is public speaking,
Hmm.
and I'm no different. I had that fear, and I knew that to progress in my career and personal development and all those kind of things, that was something that I was going to have to get more comfortable with and conquer. And also, I had told my then girlfriend, now fiance, that I wanted to check it out, and she's in the acting entertainment industry, so she's super, out of the box and kind of opposite of definitely what I am and was at the time. And so I made this comment, and I had to stay accountable. I couldn't chicken out that I wanted to go to Toastmasters
Hmm.
and work on that public speaking. So I finally made the attempt, and got up there and got in front of people, and I really ended up loving it. It was one of those things where your heart's racing, and but you don't die. You know, nothing happens. What's the worst case? You say something dumb, but you know, I do that all the time, and just being on a bigger scale, it's not so bad. So
I think I had yes, I think somebody the other day said something like nobody's ever died from an anxiety attack. You just get more anxious and anxious and anxious, and it's like your heart never explodes, even though you feel like it's going to. And so what? Yeah, when you find yourself in that situation, standing in front of people, thinking, "Well, I might say something dumb, but I say it all the time." I feel like if do you ever frame your your I say dumb things as just a as a like an endearing quality, you know, like people buy antique furniture because of all the nicks and dings and how it's kind of beat up, not because it's in pristine condition, and that makes it more valuable. So, you know, hey, it's me. It's an endearing quality. Sorry if it bugs you.
well, that's the thing about it is, you know, obviously nobody's perfect,
Yeah.
and having that uniqueness, bringing yourself to the stage is really what sets you apart, and that is the beauty of it. It's just a very difficult thing to embrace and learn to love, I suppose.
Yeah. I think people have a hard time loving themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that probably comes with all the social media and the comparison that's out there. Um, but it's so much easier. It's so much easier to put yourself down than it is to build yourself up a lot of times.
Yeah. So what else are you doing besides getting on a podcast and talking to people that makes you uncomfortable?
Well, my recent transition, my pivot. So I was a CPA doing tax returns and public accounting,
Okay.
and that was, you know, super comfortable. I'm sitting in a cubicle. I'm preparing returns. I have very little, if no, interaction with other human beings. Even when there was people in the office, like I could go a day and look around, and you know, nobody gets up to chat, and everybody stays to themselves and does their work. And you know, being a hard worker is a good quality, but in that environment, like there's you know, it just was not an ideal living environment to go to work for 8. In tax season, you're closer to 10 to 12 hours, and just bury yourself on the computer. So I was doing that, and I pivoted into this personal financial planning type role, and helping educate people on money, teach them some things. And you know, that comes with reaching out to people, sitting down one on one, asking difficult questions. So that's been a learning process in itself, also.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. You seem to be at that kind of place where people look at their lives and think, you know, this is an okay life, but it's not the life that I'm gonna. If I could choose a life, I could choose a path. I'm gonna choose a slightly different path than the one I'm on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I um, I got into personal development a couple of years back, and that kind of opened my eyes to, you know, creating myself into making myself more valuable, seeing the opportunities that are out there that are, and the reality that is that being in the situation that I was, I was looking into the future and seeing these partners at tax firms, and it it didn't look like the career got any better in the future, really. So you know, trying to take control a little bit, and manage those options.
Yeah.
There's definitely a lot out there, and you want to do your best to design the life that you really want to live, I suppose.
Yeah. So many people, I think, don't take that opportunity to design, like you talk about your life. If you're in financial planning, I think one of the questions that, or one of the preliminary thoughts in financial planning is, what are you going to do in the future? What do you want your life to look like? And then back it up with what kind of resources do you need to be able to, to have that life. Um, and is it your estimation that people start that process too late, or later than they should, or later than they could?
I would say 95% of the people start too late, and another high percentage of people probably just don't give it any thought. Our traditionally we work a job for many years, and then we figure out what we want to do in retirement down the road, versus having a plan in place and strategizing from an early point. Yeah, definitely.
What do you think, eh, coupling your work in personal development and your skill set in financial planning, what do you think are the impediments to people taking the time and effort to set up some sort of plan earlier?
Now, excuse me, impediments means what is holding them back. Am I correct there?
Yeah.
I think, okay, so a lot of developing yourself and personal improvement, a lot of it's internal, right? You have
Hmm.
to do some reflection, maybe look back at decisions you've made, or in the looking into the future, what you actually want. And there's a lot of internal work as far as getting clarity on what you want, and that type of thing. And I think that people don't necessarily want to go inside. They don't want to have those conversations and do the work, I guess.
Yeah. I recently got off a call. I mean, the reason I ask is I recently got off a call with my therapist, and she's great, very insightful, and asks great questions. And as I'm talking through, one of my strengths, which is uh, uh, distracting and delaying, I I I said, yeah, I wonder if one of the things that keeps me stuck in some ways is unwillingness to go through certain feelings or feel certain feelings. And so if taking a certain action leads me to a feeling that I don't know how to process, then I won't take that action, because I think we kind of intuitively know what's behind the door. Like you're like, hey, I'm gonna go to public speaking. You already intuitively know that I don't want to do public speaking because I'm afraid of standing in front of people and saying something stupid, and they're all gonna laugh at me, and I'm not gonna be smart or whatever it is, right?
Right.
And I intuitively don't go through certain doors because it's like, I'm gonna feel sad, and I don't want to feel sad. I'm gonna feel fear, and I'm feel shamed, and I don't want to feel shamed. And so therefore, don't take the action, don't open the door, don't go through that, even though that is your point of liberation. That's like, the fear is the gateway. Go through the door, because the only way to resolve those things is to take action. And I wonder if people have certain feelings in themselves around finances or life that keep them from planning earlier on. Or maybe these things, maybe we only come to these things after living life. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is, I completely agree. We know ourselves so well, and we probably know the answers to all those difficult questions. And, to a certain extent, that's why we avoid them. It's much easier that way. And that path of least resistance, that comfort zone, that's easier.
Yeah, it's easier, for a bit. It seems easier, right?
It's easier up front.
But it
Now,
doesn't over the long haul. And I think the what did I say recently? It's like looking at something like something that needs to be dealt with or something, and then like putting it in a can instead of like dealing with it. Put it in a can, tie it to the back of your car, and then keep driving. And then like another thing comes along, you put it in a can, tie it to the back of your car, keep driving. Put it in a can, tie it to the back of your car, until all of a sudden it's like, why is my car going so slowly, and why is there so much noise? And I think we do that with our lives. We we look at something, go, I don't know what to do. Put it in a can, tie it to the back of our life, keep driving. Put it in the can, tie it to the back of our life, and then we get down the road, and we're like, why is life so difficult, and why is there so much noise? Like, oh, well, all this stuff you dragging around.
yeah, that's a fantastic analogy. And then as far as noise goes, we've just got so much stimulus anymore
Yeah,
with stuff coming in just from every different direction. And that also makes it difficult to ask, take that time with yourself, because you need to be quiet. You need to kind of get away from everything. Obviously, put this guy down here and then, and get quiet. And it's really hard to do that anymore.
yeah, it is. We're bombarded constantly, and I think uh, I'm. I mean, this case in point. I mean, this is a show that's being
Right.
going out, to the internet as another thing to absorb. And I and I know this for myself, and I know that other folks get caught here too. This idea that because I've thought about it, or because I've took the information in, somehow I've taken action on it, and we can get into a situation where we're just pulling in information but never taking action on it. And so, you in your personal development journey, there's a lot of things I'm sure that you've brought into your life. And if you learn these things but never take action on them, and just go back to the well and keep dragging up more water, um, to what end? And I think that sometimes people get stuck in a loop of consumption rather than doing something with it.
That is that is right on, and it's one of the hardest things that I've gotten to a point where I'm at that. I'm taking in a lot of good things, and to a certain extent, I'm just hoping that my subconscious will hang on to enough of it, because application is the hardest part,
Mm. Yeah.
especially with the volume of things that we're taking in. And in my journey, I'm trying to figure out how to be more intentional with, you know, I've got the information is endless, and everything's accessible, everything is free, there's so much good stuff out there. But again, figuring out how it applies to you, and how to break it down into a small enough bite that you can start to work it into your days. It's not the easiest thing, but it's definitely the most important thing. Otherwise, yeah, you're just spinning your wheels.
Yeah. At one point in time, somebody said something like, be a river, not a dam. And the concept is that take in things and then use them, clean them up if you can, but use them in the process, and then send it downstream. And if we can get into that process of whatever I take in, I then use and send it down to somebody else who's taking it into their life, using and sending it downstream. That's who we should be as individuals, because this concept of we go through our lives, we develop experiences. One of the best things we could do is pass on those experiences to another generation, or to our peers, or to whoever's listening. Here's what I know, and here's how I came about that knowledge. If if we don't do that, if we just take it in, we're what? A library with the doors never open? Stories never told. Why would we do that? And I think at some point in time we cross a line where we move to significance. We want to, like, okay, I'm doing these things. So this comes from the book Halftime by Bob Buford. We move from success to significance. We developed success in some way, but that wasn't enough. And then we went, okay, but how am I making a difference? What is significant about the things that I have or I've amassed, or the things that I know? And we have to consciously reflect at that point in time and go, what kind of significant mark do I want to make, and what does that look like? And people who don't go through that process become recalcitrant and stuck and crabby in old age and full of regrets. And the people who do reflect and make that change, much like you made a change from, I don't want my life to look like this. How am I going to leverage this to something different that feels more significant to me? People who do that become more fulfilled, become more alive, work on things that need to be worked on, address their fears, and become, I think, a positive example to folks that they're around.
Yeah, I have a lot of responses to that, but that's fantastic. I mean, first of all, it comes down to comes back to there's so much content out there that you can't look at it like changing the world, because your voice might not be that big, but if you change that one life, you tell a story or share some information, and that one person takes it in and they're able to duplicate that, and that's that the multiplication factor. That's how, I mean, with all the information going around, that's that's how changes are going to happen, by one person at a time, I suppose.
Yeah,
And
I
then
think so.
what's that?
I said I think so.
It's easier, again, to break it down into bite sizes. It's easier to do that than to change a million lives. But
Well, yeah. You said when you signed up for Coffee with Humans, you said that if there was a chapter of your if your life were a novel, a chapter of your book would be, and he still turned out okay. I'm curious what's that about. I feel like we all have those moments. What's behind yours?
well, I just felt like I was drifting for a long time.
Okay.
So I'm 32 years young, and I just started kind of I started being intentional about improving myself, and becoming a better person versus, like I said, drifting. Just a couple
Mhm.
of years ago, and figuring out what was important, and all these couple things. I played baseball forever. I was actually able to go overseas, and I played through school, and just kept going, and I had it was my passion, obviously, is what I love to do, and I took it a long ways, and had a lot of great experiences, but at the end of the day, I didn't feel like it was kind of that looking in moment where you had said, what's the significance? I didn't feel like I was helping anybody, or providing any value. I was just having fun for my own personal enjoyment, and doing what I wanted to do. I was having too much fun as far as intake and consumption on some other things, and like I said, just getting by, enjoying life, and I had plenty of experiences through that where maybe didn't make the right, or the best long-term decisions, and like I said, it still turned out all right. I still have plenty of years to go to turn the ship around, and do a lot of good things.
I think that's part of the, um, I don't know, the idea that everybody's on a journey, and there are maybe more than one path to the mountaintop on that journey, or through the valley, wherever you're at. And as long as we continue to move forward, we can delay in a certain point, and we can take a day trip. We could get stuck in the mud, but when it's time to move, paying attention to that voice that says, "Okay, it's time to move from this place." Move, one step in front of the other. Which, that's what a lot about Coffee with Humans is about. It's just this idea that we can be very intentional about spending time together, and if two people or get together in a space, that we really have the opportunity to walk for just a moment on the journey, on our individual journeys with somebody else, and good things, in fact, great things can come of that. Um, and it really just does take just being intentional about it.
Yeah, absolutely. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I'm a big believer in the fact that everything happens for a reason,
Mhm.
and throughout your life, kind of thing. So I turning out where I am today, what I'm doing right now, which I'm in love with this position that I'm in, and all those things, they got me. Whether I did good things or bad things, they got me to the point where I am today. So, it's never too late, and there's always a reason and a purpose for things that are going on. And I believe that to be true. So that's a big one for me. And then I was going to say too, I don't know if you are a believer or familiar with, the law of attraction
Mhm.
and that kind of information. I love that we can um, get on the phone here and have these kind of conversations. I was just thinking about this the other day. I feel like, so in that idea of attraction, you're in your everyday life, you're out and about, and you're bringing in people and ideas and crossing paths with things. And I think that it's that there's got to be some kind of crazy shift in that, this whole pandemic thing, not to get into that too much, but nobody's really out and about, and we're all virtual. And I was thinking to myself how that affects, your interactions and your kind of attractions, not being physically really around people, or being out in the world, um, and just being more stagnant at home.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought line. My experience has been that people are in significant need, I would say, of connection, real, true, authentic connection, and we have a proxy to that connection when we go out, to a restaurant or a bar, or meet new people, uh, and in some way, we really hope that that connection is going to develop into something more and something deeper, with whoever it is, we're sitting there watching the game with, or something like that. Um, and it reminds me, I was at, this is end of last year. It was kind of open in this area, and I was watching a game with somebody, and my headspace was just like, I can't take shallow conversations. So I'm watching a game at a bar, and there's this big dude. He's kind of fun guy, big burly Italian guy, and he's our dude. He's always like, "Hey, how's it going?" And just big boisterous personality, and but shallow, always a joke, something we got to laugh at or whatever. And I had had enough. I couldn't do it anymore, because I can't exist in that level of conversation for very long. And so finally, I just looked at him. I said, "Why do you do that?" I said, "Why do you just you like bob and weave as you're talking?" And I said, um, that I can't do that shallow conversation. I said, that's not the relationship you and I are going to have anymore. And he didn't know what to say. He kind of looked at me and he's like, I okay. I don't know why I do that. You're right, I do that. And he's like, got really introspective, and he's like, I yeah. And all of a sudden it's just like, woo, it brought it to a deeper like understanding and level that's like you know, you don't have to just be superficial and disconnected and have this proxy for real connection by just being a jokester with me. You can just be you. It's totally fine because otherwise, if we don't do that for some if we are not real and authentic with somebody, we encourage everybody else around us to not be real and authentic. But that's not what people are looking for. And I think that we have to develop or are developing new skills by being remote and socially distanced. How do we develop those and have those skills to have more true connection, even though we can't be in proximity to one another? The need doesn't go away. It's just how do we get to that point that has to change? And I think some people have successfully or are successfully making that change, and some people aren't, as evidenced by conference calls nowadays. You get on a conference call with some people from a business or whatever, and all of a sudden a cat like jumps up on somebody and just like, oh, you have a life. Or there's a kid like in the background, chatter, 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 and they're like, it's no longer unacceptable to have a life. It used to be like, it's like you used to hold yourself away in your office and be like, I have no kids, I got nothing going on.
I'm a
We'll
professional.
exactly. And now it's just like, hold on a second. Yeah, the Swiffer, you put the thing on the bottom, right? And then you go right back to, it's real, it's true, or more real and more true to what life really is. We are holistic beings craving connection. And in the middle of it, we each have something we're trying to get done, something that's in our minds and our hearts, and trying somebody we want to be.
Yeah, and along with being authentic and what you're attracting in authenticity, people can sense if you're being real with them or not. If you're just cracking jokes. Had you just come from your therapist before that game, and then sounds like you changed that man's life.
I was in a particularly weird mood in my brain, and I was just like, I can't have shallow conversations. And yeah, and I have learned. So just like you're on your journey of self-discovery, is you want to put yourself out there into some ways that you might fear, and just know that it's okay. And you want to try things that are new and put yourself in uncomfortable positions. Me, I've gone through, on my journey, it's kind of like, okay, well, how am I going to, how do I phrase this? In that circumstance, it was like, how am I going to exist around other people and also just be me? And I'm just not going to allow this, shallow thing going on. But I want to be near these people. These are my friends, but I also need them to know that, listen, you're exhausting me right now. And so it's like, I'm exhausted by you because I can't do the shallow thing. And I didn't say, you wouldn't say it that way, but it's sort of breaking down barriers for me, and just in some ways, how do you make change around you? When you want to make change, make change. When you want to have, kick back and be a jokester, be that person too. But um, how do you not get caught, or how do I not get caught sometimes in the trap of being whoever people around me need me to be, instead of the person who I am?
Well,
And
that's such a good example that you brought up, because in conforming to this shallow conversation, a part of you is like, I can't say anything because I don't know how he'll react. But just by being authentic and saying, what are you doing here? What's your intention here? Again, nobody died, and this guy was like, oh, that is a good question. And he respected you more for throwing it out there, I'm sure, than for keeping him going.
Yeah, it was certainly unexpected.
Well, yeah.
But I am convinced that we all, as humans, really do want these true connections. And um when we don't get them, we start to parts of us start to die off. And so we need to get ourselves back into those situations, or craft boundaries, or call each other to account, something to say, listen, we like, this isn't real life here. This shallow thing, it feels like we're at a comedy club. Um, and life's not a comedy right now, so don't do this with me.
Well, we're afraid to be weird. Everybody's weird, but they're afraid to embrace it.
But it is, like you talk about, it is our individual weirdness that other people connect with. Like you say, people can see when you're just being you. It's that sixth sense, the thing that you are, that makes everything congruous. The your facial expressions, the words that you speak, your posture, that sixth sense like comes back into there and goes, oh, this guy's real, true, and authentic. And versus like, no, this is an act. We're watching a play here, and it's not even a good one.
Yeah, people can tell, and it's just it's more work. It's more work to put on that charade, anyways.
Yeah, I think so. You must find it as you deal with people in the financial services industry, when you have real, true, authentic conversations with people about their situations and what you can do for them. You must find that you get into some of that flow where it's just like, man, this is just clicking and it all makes sense, versus when you might find yourself outside of that flow and you're just like, this is herky jerky and I'm not even sure if we're connecting.
Yeah, that one's tricky because the people that don't, and this is a blanket statement, and it's not true, but more often the people that are those herky jerky conversations, it's not that they're self-conscious about being weird, it's that they're self-conscious about their they about what they know about what's going on and the situation that they're in, and that sometimes can be difficult for people to be outward with and to share.
How do you get through the barrier that people have with uh, them feeling like, hey, I don't know enough. I feel like you're gonna. I feel like you don't have my best interest in mind, or something like that. How do you deal with that, and break through those barriers with people?
Well, I think that strength in numbers is huge on that front, because I like our school systems. They don't really teach us about the basics, about things that we should know about our financial system or financial plan, our security, our future. Everything is either traditional and you just kind of ride the wave, or you can do some research for yourself online, but they don't system doesn't really prepare us for it. So the majority of people are in that boat where they're not as educated, as informed as they could be. And I think that's the biggest one, in hopes of allowing people to feel more comfortable, is that they're not in a minority for not knowing some of this information, or not being as planned and prepared as they could be.
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. I think people intuitively know that they don't maybe have some of the knowledge that they feel they should have, which leads them to then not be open, perhaps, or to be resistant. I guess might be another way to put it, to dealing with things they need to deal with.
And that one comes back to pride and ego.
Hmm.
So it's like a lot of people don't know, and they're like, I don't know, teach me. And then
Hmm.
you have the people that are like on the inside, they're like, I don't know, but I ain't gonna tell you that.
Can you see those people? Can you intuit that feeling from people?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah. It's it and what's the feeling that you get in those moments just as a human being? Not if you were trying to y- let's somehow subtract this idea that you were trying to work with them on something. What's the feeling that you walk away with in those moments from those folks?
Well, it's a pattern that whether it's procrastination or an ignorance is bliss type of thing.
Hmm.
It's a pattern that people get stuck in and ride out, and some people don't want help or won't accept it, and there's not much you can do on that front.
Yeah, it is. It's true. It's some of that does become habitual, and then it builds up over time. Like the guy at the bar who just dodges and weaves, you
Yeah.
know, and it just becomes a jokester. It's just a habit that's been built up, like you talk about, and it seems that habits never. Somebody just recently told me this. Habits never die; they just get replaced.
Yeah.
Once we've developed a habit, we can go back to that habit at any point in time. It's programmed now, but to remove that habit, you can't just take it away. Now you have a void. You have to fill it with a different habit, a better habit, a habit that does lead to something successful. And that like we talked about before, it's like takes quiet, takes introspection, it takes thinking things through. It takes going to somebody else, like yourself, and saying, "Hey, how walk me through this, help me build up these habits." Because there are things that you'll see about the world that things that I won't see, and that's why we need to have these conversations.
Yeah. And it's much easier to ride out a habit, good or bad. Well, it's much easier to ride out a bad one than it is a good one.
Yeah, I suppose that's true. So what's on your agenda here for 2021? I know we're kind of at the beginning part of the year. What's your focus?
I'm getting married this year.
What?
Yeah.
Awesome. That's
On
exciting.
Yeah, it is. It is. So on 8/28 in August in Des Moines. I'm actually in Atlanta, but from Iowa, from Des Moines originally. Both me
Okay.
and my fiance are, and so we'll be going back there. Um, she's a super planner, so everything is pretty much accounted for, and now we're just coasting. I think we're at like 220 days right now,
Wow. And counting.
and no, but yeah, super excited for that, and hopefully there's no head count rules, and we can just have the traditional wedding party and all that good stuff. But that's my big news for the year.
That is exciting. Congratulations. I
Thank
hope
you.
also that this will be opened up and you'll be able to just have the party that you're looking forward to. That's great.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time here. Any words of wisdom that you want to impart? Things that you've learned from these kind of more recent times on your journey?
I'm gonna go back to our opening question and just suggest or recommend that people seek some levels of uncomfort, because that's where that growth is. That's where, whether you have a great experience that you never would have had because it was easier to stay home. I've had a lot of those situations. or you learn something about yourself. It's going to come through getting a little bit uncomfortable. And now more than ever, we have to be intentional and seek those opportunities.
Yeah. Good wisdom, man. Well, I encourage you and on your journey and honor the place that you're at. Again, congratulations on this news that you're getting married at the end of the year.
Thank you.
Super fantastic. And thanks for being on Coffee with Humans.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me on, Jason. I really enjoyed the time.
Absolutely. We'll talk soon.
All right, sounds good. Thanks. Okay.
One of the things I love about Coffee with Humans are the raw conversations I get to have, meeting new people just like you. If you or someone you know should be on Coffee with Humans, go to coffeewithhumans.com. Remember, the only rule is no sales calls.
This has been Coffee with Humans. Subscribe to get updates or click to have coffee with me. coffeewithhumans.com.